address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant for...
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need? Need one. I don't know. Don't hold that, money. I'll take it.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world. In the middle of the Caribbean have no defense capacity, raiding my home and the homes of our movement at 5 a.m. pre-dawn in the morning, threatening us with 15 years in prison for talking. This is not a powerful country. We can't stand even a discussion, but the people will be free. And it's our responsibility to make that happen. And right now, Venezuela is on the front line of that struggle, and we have to do everything we can to give solidarity to Venezuela against this war being made by this merciless, shameless, most oppressive, genocidal entity that has ever been on the planet Earth. They have to stop trying to bleed the peoples of the world for all of our resources. We want everything back. We want reparations. Everything that you've taken, we want it back with interest. So, Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Salute to
Right
Chairman
on.
Amalia Shatella.
Yes, Uhuru to the chairman, Uhuru to just the anti-colonial struggle that is alive. It is happening. It is live right now. And I just really want to appreciate that opportunity to see just a look back and today charting part of the way forward. So Uhuru, Chair Jesse, I want to welcome you. We're going to be co-emceeing today's exciting program. So Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chair Moisey, it's an incredible honor to be here. I'm so excited for this webinar today and just really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it. And want to acknowledge standing in today as your co-MC for Chairwoman Penny Hess, and also want to give a deep salute to Chairwoman Penny, the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee and also one of the Uhuru Three. Uhuru.
Yes, Uhuru, and vice chair of the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition, and really want to salute the comrade and the Uhuru Three, Chairman Amalia Shatella, Jesse Neville, and Chairwoman Penny. So, comrades, we are here on today. We're going to pull up a slideshow to just kind of give us an overview about why we are here on today. And we just want to salute and appreciate everybody who's joined us thus far. Right now, I'm going to say this again, but share this, share it with, your organization on your social media. And if you don't follow us, go, follow us on our social media platforms so you can get these alerts as they come through. So, today is the December 13th. We're going to talk about the fight for anti-colonial free speech and launching the campaign to repeal the Foreign Agent Registration Act. And as we understand, in this turbulent period of crisis and resistance, the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition has launched, this webinar to escalate the anti-colonial free speech fight back. And today you're going to hear from leaders and organizers from the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Committee, as well as supporters, on the front, on the question of repealing these political laws, and demanding this campaign to repeal the Foreign Agent Registration Act and other repressive anti-democratic laws that weaponize and attack and silence and censor anti-colonial free speech. So, and you'll also get an update on the Uhuru 3, fight back, the, work towards the appeal on the bogus conspiracy conviction. So you're going to hear this word a lot. Uhuru. Uhuru means freedom. This is a Swahili word that has, that has been at the center of the anti-colonial struggle for African people for decades. And we say Uhuru in this lifetime, and you can say that word too. So I want to greet you all with a big Uhuru. And again, I want to remind you to share this webinar. We understand the importance of getting out into the streets, and we have to use all the platforms that we can at our disposal. So put this out there in the world. Before we begin our program, I just want to take a moment to join those who knew the comrade, but also those who understand the significance of when an African or any political prisoner or any colonized person has dies in the system. We understand that it is a great loss, but that the fight is not over. But with that, we say long live, we say presente to Comrade Emil Jalil Al-Amin, also known as H. Rap Brown, a prominent civil rights activist, a leader in the Black Power movement, a chair of a SNCC, SNCC chapter as well, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, who left us in last month in November. And this comrade was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And we understand that colonialism itself is a death sentence. And so that's why this fight back is so important for us to understand that, the comrade will be there with us when the revolution is live. So Uhuru and long live.
Long live.
Uhuru. On behalf of the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back, well, the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign to stop the FBI attacks on the African People's Socialist Party, we have opened up new fronts throughout this process. The Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back coalition, of which many of you are a part of, has, demands statements of unity and an opportunity for you to join and build the anti-colonial free speech movement. As you just saw in some of the clips coming into this webinar, we have opened up a new front, a Latin America front, to take this struggle south of the, of this colonial border that separates indigenous people on their own land. And we are fighting to return back, to, put power back in our own hands for the people to engage in anti-colonial free speech from Alaska to Chile. I want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the founder of the Uhuru movement, founder of the African People's Socialist Party, and leader of the worldwide anti-colonial African revolution. The chairman has been such a significant, figure in our lifetime and has given us an opportunity to be a part of overturning this verdict on our lives. And so I just really want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and I also want to salute my leadership, Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela, who leads the economic front of the African People's Socialist Party. As we say, the economic and the political are one, building dual power under this, already shaking and crumbling social system. So salute to the deputy chair. You should see the work that is happening in St. Louis, Missouri. We say get to St. Louis. And I want to salute the Uhuru 3 comrades. Penny Hess, chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Chair Jesse, chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Both of these comrades, courageous comrades, on the front of what true solidarity means for African people. So I just want to salute this, strategy, and to say that because because they are part of the Uhuru Three, it is evidence that it is a strategy that is threatening to this colonial system. The case of the Uhuru Three, as we have said, has shaped and will shape has shaped the future of free speech. This is one of, a very serious assault on the struggle of African liberation since the 1960s. And as the chairman called out, this was a test case. And, the conviction, the bogus conviction of the Uhuru Three and the acquittal or, and the not guilty verdict are, really, significant because the Uhuru Three led a case that, was meant to have the organization crush and force us underground, but we came out winning, and we know that is the case. And it's because we raised the question of anti-colonial free speech, understanding that the question of free speech is rooted in the question of colonialism. And so in this fight back, we understand that it's important for us all around the world, anybody who is listening, if you are part of a struggle, you must understand that the root cause of that struggle is colonialism. What is colonialism? It is the foreign and alien domination of a people for economic exploitation and political advantage. Its goal is to strip the people of all human and civil rights and rule without the regards to law. So whatever it looks like, that you're seeing, whether you want to fight fascism, racism, inequality, poverty, all of these things that are not natural, right? For the colonized, our struggle must be rooted in colonialism. And you must understand that those are iterations of this system. And we see this. We continue to see, ICE, and other iterations of the colonial, army attacking the indigenous people, Mexican, indigenous people on their own land. So we say, stop ICE, the Border Patrol, the U.S. military, who are, creating terror against indigenous and Mexican people. And we salute the courageous front led by the Mexican indigenous, community, La Raza. We want to salute our compañeros with Unión del Barrio, who are also members of this important front back. And we want to continue to put out hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, hands off Venezuela. And we say, long live the Bolivarian Revolution and stop the U.S. tax against President Maduro and the People's Bolivarian government. We want to salute President Maduro and the people of Venezuela. We consider that, this intervention of the U.S. Government, which is, of course, born from genocide of African people and indigenous people of the so-called Americas. This is a gross provocation of the people of Venezuela and the peoples of the world. But as we know, they will fight back. So we salute its leadership. And we, unite with the call to stop all bombing, sanctions, resource theft, and interference in Venezuela, in Latin America, and the Caribbean. We also, understand that this is standing and resting upon a foundation that was built. So we say hasta la victoria siempre, and we say that the fight for self-determination for Venezuela will prevail. So here's just a picture of the red hats and the shirts, the color of the Bolivarian Revolution. So we say long live, and all of the colonized areas around the world that are being used to involuntarily to facilitate, the US's, looting and attack on Venezuela. So we salute the people of Puerto Rico and their history of resistance, understanding that the US is using this as a point of expropriation and profit extraction. And more recently, as we understand, has a launch pad for ships that are being used to attack Venezuela and other countries as well. This is no different than what we are seeing in Haiti. We understand that Haiti and African people in Haiti are still being punished for the first workers' revolution of the colonized world, which was the Haitian Revolution. So we say, long live the Haitian Revolution, and we are a part of that trajectory. And we salute the, liberation movement that is taking place across the continent of Africa as well, where we are seeing the crisis of imperialism having to face, leaders and the people who are fed up and who are ready to see power in their own hands. And we say victory to Palestine, from the river to the sea, and stop US-backed genocide of the Palestinian people. We understand that the US itself is a settler colony, no different than Palestine, no different than Australia, no different than South Africa. This is our fight, and we have to be able to link that together so that we see these struggles not just as our own, but we recognize who our enemy is. And in this, as we go ahead to, close out this, opening part, I want to salute and, say that in this struggle, we must continue to make the cry and the call and organize to free all political prisoners and free our brother, our comrade, Mumia Abu Jamal. Now, so as we know, the hands off Uhuru raids, you saw the video, what happened on July 29th. And part of what this whole struggle with the Uhuru 3 was to have the victory in court. And we say that this was a victory for all oppressed and colonized people. This, not guilty verdict of not working for the Russians, but working for ourselves, was a really important thing that was said in a U.S. court. So that is, opening up with Uhuru, and the people had to hear this. This is on record that we can win when we fight. So I want to say victory to the Uhuru 3. These are the, three comrades that I mentioned earlier, Chairman Amalia Shatella, Penny Hess, and Jesse Neville, who, and saluting the chairman for his brilliant leadership over our brilliant attorneys and, legal team. I want to salute Addie Griffin, Mutaki Akbar, Leonard Goodman, Angela Rainey, and Tom Inskeep, all of these, really courageous lawyers, who, took a stand. And I want to always continue to salute, Leonard Goodman, who took this case on pro bono. The Hands Off Uhuru support, has seen worldwide support. We just want to salute everybody who has shown up throughout these past 3 years, because as we say, this fight is not over. Here we are launching the campaign against FARA and the conspiracy laws to put the colonial state on trial. We understand that these are explicitly political laws. And so because of that, and this fight, just like every fight that we take, we're going to continue to raise the resources so that we can take this out into the streets. So I want to go ahead and put it out now that we have a goal to raise $1,000 on today. You can do that by going to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. Our chat moderators will put that in the chat. Whoever wants to be the first one to, donate, let us know, and we will make sure that we will thank you first when we, check back in today's program with our, with our total. So help us reach our goal. Many, at this point, the things that we raise, the funds that we raise will be going towards the appeal, process, which you'll hear about a little bit later. So with that, comrades, today, we're going to go into our program, Fight for Anti-Colonial Free Speech and Repeal the Foreign Agent Registration Act. So I'm going to kick it back to my co-MC, Jesse, who is also one of the chairs, the co-chairs of the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Committee. And so I just want to salute you, comrade, for the work that you have done to lead this aspect of the work and invite others to join this committee as well. So I'll turn it over to you to give an overview on the FARA campaign and the Uhuru 3 case. Uhuru,
Chair Mwezi, that was excellent. Very, very dynamic and powerful overview. You took us all around the world.
Yes.
And it was clear that all around the world is on fire with anti-colonial struggle. So that was very inspiring to see. And, 3 days from now will be 1 year since the day of the sentencing in Tampa, Florida. So many of our friends and comrades who are on with us today were there with us on that historic day. And I remember, Chairman, coming down those steps and, the enthusiasm and excitement of all the people. And that was supposed to be the end. As far as the government was concerned, that was supposed to be an ending. But instead, as the chairman made clear, it was a new beginning for the worldwide struggle against colonialism. And we can see that with everything that's happened since then. So salute to the leadership of the chairman. Salute to you, Chair Mwezi, to Vice Chair Penny, to everybody who's been a part of this struggle from day one. We love you so much. Some of you are on with us. I can't shout out everybody, but I do want to give a special shout out to Ward Churchill and Natsu Saito, who are on with us, who are profound friends and comrades with the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back, as well as many others. Paolo and Anne from the Latin America front, and many other people. Fofi, absolutely. Zakele.
Yes, all the way in occupied Azania.
That's right. This is international. And, just want to echo your call for people to donate. The fight is not over. Go to handsoffahuru.org/donate. Let's raise $1,000 today across all platforms. If everybody gave just $25, we can surpass our goal. So, or one person can put in 1,000 and we can really surpass our goal. So let's make this happen, comrades. I'm excited. And we have an amazing panel. ahead of us.
Yeah.
We can pull up my slides. Thank you to the AV team.
Yes.
And I can jump into this. I'm going to try to be as concise as possible because we have an amazing panel with members of the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee, Caleb Maupin, John McCarthy, and Reginald Calloway. And then we'll be having a keynote presentation from our chairman, Omali Yeshitela. So this is going to be an amazing event. And, I'm excited to kick it off with this presentation. So what we're talking about today is this political front of the ongoing counteroffensive, the anti-colonial counteroffensive that the chairman launched on July 29, 2022. And this campaign to call for the FARA and conspiracy laws to go into the trash heap of history, put the colonial state on trial. Colonialism must go. FARA must go. Conspiracy laws must go. Colonialism must go. Go to the next slide. And let me pull this up so I can, okay. So again, can't say enough to salute the leadership of the chairman. Also want to join in saluting Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela, who in addition to being the architect of all of the party's economic work, has also been a courageous leader in the fight back against the US government's attacks on the African liberation movement throughout this process. And I just want to salute the chairman and deputy chair and express my profound appreciation for African internationalism. As a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people formed and working under the leadership of the party, my ability to understand these questions that we're going to be talking about is thanks to the theory and the leadership of African internationalism, which teaches us, as the chairman always says, that law is the opinion of the ruling class. The chairman demystifies the law when he says that. And when you look at colonial law, which all of the law of the United States and really of most of the world is colonial law, you're looking at a situation where, as the chairman says, the colonizer creates the laws, but colonialism itself is illegitimate. And I think that has to always be our starting point for our discussions about taking on a campaign to challenge these particular manifestations of colonial law. And going to the next slide, this campaign takes place in the context of a deepening crisis of colonialism. I think everywhere you look, you see more and more evidence of this, as we just saw in Chair Mwezi's incredible presentation. Colonialism is on the back foot. And the chairman said from the very beginning that the Uhuru 3 case was the canary in the coal mine. The chairman said this was the beginning, that it was a sign of things to come in terms of the desperate intensification of colonial counterinsurgency against anti-colonial free speech, against the right of African and oppressed peoples to exercise the allegedly constitutionally protected right to advocate and organize for the liberation and self-determination of their people. And we saw this, in the months and years following the attack on the Uhuru 3, an escalation of attacks under the Biden administration against those who were out supporting the struggle for the liberation of Palestine, who were targeted by people like Nancy Pelosi as being so-called agents of Russia or China. And we've continued to see it under the current administration. There is an important memo that people should look up and people should read that was released in September by the Trump administration, called National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, which outlined the US government's plan to escalate their attacks using the legal system as their primary weapon, using the so-called Justice Department to intensify attacks against those that they deem so-called anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-traditional American family values, etc. And just a week or two ago, a memo from the Department of Justice Attorney General Pam Bondi was leaked, exposing that the Attorney General had given immediate orders to the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Forces to compile a list of so-called domestic terrorist organizations and individuals with supposedly anti-American views who should be targeted for investigation and prosecution under a whole host of charges that were laid out in the memo. And they even offered to create, or not offered, they are planning to create a cash reward system to reward people who participate in helping to frame up and arrest leaders of organizations that are deemed so-called anti-American. So this is the era of crisis and deepening repression that was ushered in by the attack on the Uhuru 3, and for which the struggle of the Uhuru 3 and Hands Off Uhuru remains the tip of the spear in pushing this back. The governor of Ron DeSantis recently designated the Council of American and Islamic Relations a terrorist organization. And this is another example of this, and they are suing the state of Florida in response to this. And I wanted to quote from Chairman Omali Yeshitela, because a lot of what we're seeing right now, you sometimes hear white leftists or liberals referring to this as the encroachment of fascism in the United States. And the chairman has been addressing this for many years. And this is a quote from the book Vanguard, The Advanced Detachment of the African Revolution, which was the political report to the 7th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party, where the chairman said, quote, "The tendency to compare our situation with fascism in Nazi Germany and elsewhere is erroneous and outrageous when considering the murder, terror, torture, and exploitation that Africans have endured at the hands of our white democratic colonizers for the past 600 years. It is worth noting that with all the terror and brutality Africans have faced since our introduction to European democracy, it took the emergence of Mussolini and Hitler and the attack on the rights of white people for a special designation called fascism to suddenly become necessary." The chairman continues, quote, "When proto-fascist repression did appear in the United States in the 1950s in what is called the McCarthy era, with a reign of terror backed by popular support from the general white population chasing the Communist Party underground and almost into extinction, it was the colonized African population whose struggles for democracy kept the society open. Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, Rosa Parks, and an army of Africans living near starvation and suffering every imaginable deprivation were the forces that not only defeated US fascism, but forged new definitions of democracy onto the agenda of the US. That is what this is about. That's the quote from the chairman. That is what this campaign, this struggle, this leadership of the African working class represents in this period. And this brings us to the question of our appeal. The Uhuru 3 appeal was filed by the Uhuru 3 attorneys, who've done an amazing job embracing the leadership, the political strategic leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and taking the struggle into the colonial courts. Leonard Goodman, Angela Rainey, Mutaki Akbar, Addie Griffin, and Tom Inskeep, they filed a brilliant appeal brief on June 16th. And the government responded to that brief with their response brief earlier this month. And it was a lackluster response. They actually assigned a DC-based attorney to head up their defense of this conviction on conspiracy, and ended up basically reiterating all of the same nonsense that we heard from the original prosecution team. So our attorneys are now working on our reply to their response, which is due by December 22nd, at which point the briefs go to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, who will either make a ruling or call for oral arguments. If we get oral arguments, that will likely take place next year in Atlanta, Georgia, and we will be mobilizing our supporters to pack the court for those oral arguments. So this is part of the ongoing fight back that you are supporting when you go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. And as we know, as the chairman has told us, this appeal has huge political and legal significance. It is a victory that will have implications far beyond this case, but for every person in this country and around the world, really, who may end up in the crosshairs of the US government's repression. So we're talking today about the Foreign Agent Registration Act and the related law, 18 USC 951, the one that was specifically used against the chairman and the Uhuru 3, and the conspiracy law, which is the one that was also used against the chairman and the Uhuru 3, and under which the Uhuru 3 were ultimately convicted. As the chairman has said, these laws are explicitly political laws. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But when we talk about the importance of this campaign, we have to remember that the Uhuru 3 case is the greatest example of the political character of these laws. And this campaign is so important because nobody's doing this. The chairman says any success we have in this campaign contributes to weakening, even if only in principle, the concept of a Foreign Agent Registration Act. We will challenge the legitimacy of the whole colonial process by using the democratic principles supposedly ensconced in the Constitution and the very fabric of the United States. So our mission with this campaign is to build this committee. We're going to be meeting monthly on the third Tuesday of the month. We're going to say more about that later. You can put it in the chat or email info@handsoffuhuru.org to join this popular mass campaign to demand the repealing of these laws. Part of the legal basis, as the chairman says, use the principles in the Constitution to expose these attacks. We talk about the First Amendment, which says Congress shall make no law that prohibits the free exercise of speech, abridges the freedom of speech. And these laws, the Foreign Agent Registration Act and 18 U.S.C. 951, were created by Congress. So the Foreign Agent Registration Act is the better known of the two statutes, but they are very similar. They have some important differences. The law that was used against the Uhuru 3 is called the Agents of Foreign Governments Act, or 18 U.S.C. 951. And it is similar to the Foreign Agent Registration Act, with one important distinction being that the first way that the Foreign Agent Registration Act is prosecuted or is carried out is through an administrative mechanism where they send you a letter, as they did in the case of W.E.B. Du Bois, telling you that they are requiring you to register as a foreign agent with the Attorney General's office. So both of these laws are designed to pursue criminal charges against people who are accused of acting as foreign agents without notifying the Attorney General's office. Under FARA, they send you a letter. Under 951, they break down your door at 5 a.m. like they did to the chairman, deputy chair, and the Uhuru movement. And under FARA, you could be sentenced to up to 5 years. Under 951, which they used against the Uhuru movement, you could be sentenced to up to 10 years. But they both basically use the same instrument to target speech, which is the allegation that your speech is being directed by a foreign government. And these laws are outgrowths of the period of the 1917 and around that time. They emerged from the 1917 Espionage Act. And the chairman has talked about this. What was going on during that time? It was another period of intense crisis for the colonial system. You had Sandino in Nicaragua. You had anti-colonial struggle in India. You had Garvey, the movement of Marcus Garvey in the United States. And during the First Imperialist World War, this law, the 1917 Espionage Act, was created to wage counterinsurgency against anti-colonial revolt. So its origins are political. Its function is political. And similarly, the Foreign Agent Registration Act was passed in 1937. The US government claimed that it was passed to prevent the spread of Nazism, although almost immediately it was used instead to target people accused of having ties to Soviet Russia. But as the chairman points out, even if you accept that the law was created to prevent the spread of Nazism, that's proof that the law was meant as a political law. It wasn't created to prevent quote unquote crime. It was meant to prevent the expression of political or ideological views that the United States did not want to be heard. And the US government likes to say, as they did in the case of the Uhuru 3, that this law is content neutral, that it's not about what you say, it's about the fact that so-called Russians or Chinese or Iranians told you to say it. They used that lie against the Uhuru movement, and which was patently absurd. And the fact is that the Uhuru 3 case obviously shows how absurd that is, but also the history of the law shows what a lie that is, because you don't find FARA prosecutions alleging that people acted as secret agents of France or Canada or the United Kingdom. What you find instead are people accused of being agents of Russia, China, Cuba, Iran, countries the United States considers adversarial, governments that have challenged US colonial domination in one way or another. This is a colonial law, plain and simple. And I'm coming towards the end here. This law was infamously used against W.E.B. Du Bois in the 1950s. He was accused of being an agent of the Soviet Union. And it is a law that for many years, there were very few prosecutions that took place under this law. In fact, in the previous 60 years before 2016, so there have been more prosecutions in the past 10 years than there were in the previous 60 years. And the law became a favorite weapon of attack between contending sectors of the ruling class, especially by the liberal sector in the form of the Democratic Party, who weaponized this law against Trump affiliates, many of whom actually ended up going to prison on FARA and 951 charges. And it is also true that the attack on the Uhuru 3 was initiated under Biden. And as the chairman said, it was the canary in the coal mine, the opening salvo of a new era of war against anti-colonial free speech. And I mentioned earlier that this NSPM 7, when Trump first came into office, his attorney general announced that they would actually be narrowing the scope of FARA prosecutions. However, about a month ago in that NSPM 7, he announced that instead of limiting FARA prosecutions, his administration would actually be expanding them, using them to go after political organizations and individuals. So in other words, Trump is taking a page out of Biden's Uhuru 3 playbook, and we're seeing the escalation of this now. And we've talked about this more extensively in other webinars, but this campaign will also be setting its sights on the conspiracy statute, which has been a time and time again a weapon used against African and colonized people, including the Uhuru movement, including the New York 21, the New York 8, the Holy Land 5 Palestinian men, and even the Stop Cop City 61, charged under variations of the conspiracy statute, which is, as the chairman says, a thought crime. You don't have to even have done the thing they accuse you of conspiring to do. They just have to say that you thought about doing it, that you wanted to do it. This is another explicitly political law that exists to maintain the colonial oppression of African people and to silence those who struggle against it. So we're going to go to our panel now and hear from our incredible members of the HOU Legal Defense Support Committee. And then I will be coming back on after we hear from the chairman to talk about the practical next steps that each and every one of you can carry out to build the campaign, the people's movement against FARA and conspiracy laws in your community, on your campus, at your workplace. This has to be a people's movement. It has to be a popular movement, and we have to build it in every single city where we can in the US and beyond. We should take this international, and that is our goal. So that concludes my overview. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chair Jesse, I just really want to appreciate that overview and, that political education. I think what we should continue to do is even make some of these like short clips so people can come back to that, because it's a really helpful overview, and I want to appreciate you for, appreciating African internationalism, which helps us to really clarify, what we're looking at. And so I just really want to salute your presentation, your leadership around building this committee. And I just want to also, before we go to our panel, I want to thank some people who have already gone to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. We have 625 left to raise. Our goal is 1,000, and I want to thank Penny for your $100 donation. I want to thank Caleb, who you're going to hear from shortly, for your $100. Thank you, John, $30, Johan, $100, Brendan, $20, and Ann, $25. So thank you. Be like all those comrades. Get us to our goal of raising and exceeding our $1,000 goal on today. But go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. So Uhuru, I'll turn it back to you, comrade.
Uhuru, that is really exciting. Thank you to everybody who's donating so far. And it is my honor to introduce our first panelist, a member of the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee and the founder and director of the Center for Political Innovation. Caleb Maupin is also an author and international journalist who has spoken with multiple heads of state, including the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi. And we're very honored to have Caleb on with us today. He's been a staunch supporter and freedom fighter with the Hands Off Uhuru struggle from the very beginning. So
Yeah,
Uhuru, Caleb.
very beginning. Uhuru.
Well, thank you for having this important webinar to discuss a really, really important issue. And, Jesse gave a really, really great history there. And I just want to kind of, I guess complement or supplement Jesse's great history of the Uhuru case, but also specifically about the FARA law, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, because it's particularly interesting when we talk about divisions within the American elite. There is one particular faction that has been, widely kind of acknowledged. Carroll Quigley, who was the mentor of Bill Clinton, he wrote a book called The Anglo-American Establishment, where he argued that there was a faction in the American power structure based in New England, tied in with the British Empire, that has a lot of power and represents kind of the old entrenched elite among the American money. And that they are kind of at war with the rest of the American elite. And you can interpret a lot of U.S. politics as a fight between this Eastern New England establishment, the Atlanticist faction that is very pro-NATO, versus kind of the lower levels of capital. And what's interesting about the Foreign Agents Registration Act, it was passed during the Roosevelt administration. And as was noted by Brother Jesse, this is a law that the liberals, the Democrats, tend to use. And that during the McCarthy era, there were many people arrested and charged for being members of the Communist Party, for being allegedly close to the Soviet Union. But other than W.E.B. Du Bois, this law, the Foreign Agent Registration Act, was generally not used. Why was that? Well, there were a number of other laws that existed. For example, there was the Smith Act of 1940. There was the McCarran Internal Security Act. There was the Communist Control Act. And there were a number of laws that were passed to specifically target the Soviet Union and its allies. And so those were the laws that were generally used against the Communist Party and during the McCarthy years. Now, what changed? Well, in 1956, Khrushchev became the leader of the Soviet Union, and he launched his leadership at the 20th Party Congress by just going on a tirade against Stalin. And giving his infamous secret speech where he accused Stalin of being a mass murdering dictator, basically saying everything that U.S. media and mainstream media had said about Stalin was true. And what Khrushchev was doing is he was signaling to the United States and to the Western colonial powers that he wouldn't fight them and that he was willing to hold back the anti-colonial movements and struggles around the world that were aligned with the Soviet Union in exchange for détente. And after Khrushchev gave his 1956 speech, you saw in the United States, McCarthyism began to ebb, and that Eastern establishment, the Rockefeller family in particular, they pushed to kind of push back against McCarthyism. And in that process, the Warren Court of the Supreme Court overturned a lot of those anti-communist laws, such as the Smith Act, such as the Communist Control Act, etc. And so a lot of those anti-communist laws specifically have been overturned because of the strategy of the Eastern establishment of using the revisionist communist leadership to control anti-colonial movements and, utilizing and kind of courting factions in the Soviet Union that would be useful in holding back anti-colonial struggles. And eventually we saw the overthrow of the Soviet Union with the Gorbachev reformist wing of the Soviet Union just kind of throwing in the towel in the early 90s. And what's particularly interesting is that, it was the Carter administration that, they come out of, everyone in the Carter administration came out of something called the Trilateral Commission, which was a Rockefeller-funded think tank. And they started investigating the possible use of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, specifically as part of the Korea Gate investigations of 1978, 1979. At that point, Park Chung-hee, the military dictator of South Korea, was asserting his independence. He was developing his own nuclear weapons program, which would have led to the U.S. troops leaving South Korea because they would have had their own nuclear weapons. He was pursuing independent economic development of South Korea. And the Carter administration basically declared war on Park Chung-hee and his allies in the United States. And they launched a congressional investigation of Korean business owners. And they specifically targeted Reverend Sun Myung Moon and the Unification Movement, which was an anti-communist religious group that was operating in the United States at the time with the Foreign Agents Registration Act. And they published hundreds of pages of reports accusing the allies of the military dictatorship in South Korea of being in violation of FARA. And eventually, they didn't use the Foreign Agents Registration Act to go after the unification movement. They used, trumped up tax charges eventually. But it was because they saw South Korea becoming more independent and asserting itself that they began utilizing and discussing this law. Now, later, it was not really until the Obama administration that we saw this law really start to get weaponized in the way that it's being utilized now. During Barack Obama's presidency, you'll remember in 2010, Barry Jonas, who was the attorney, the U.S. attorney for the Midwestern region based in Chicago, he sent the FBI to raid the homes of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization and to raid the homes of the Electronic Intifada, the pro-Palestine website, and that Obama's administration began targeting kind of anti-war and anti-imperialist activists specifically in the Chicago area, with Barry Jonas, who is a Zionist, a huge supporter of Israel, with him carrying out these raids. One of the people that Obama's administration targeted was Ben Israel. And Ben Israel is a leader of the Black Hebrew Israelites movement in Chicago. And they charged him with being an unregistered agent of Zimbabwe, right? The anti-colonial government of Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe that was redistributing the land of white farmers. They charged Ben Israel, this Black Hebrew Israelite leader in Chicago, with being an agent supposedly of Zimbabwe, and he ended up going to prison for several years. And that was kind of, we can see that, the Obama administration, Barack Obama himself studied under Brzezinski at Columbia University, and that was that Rockefeller wing of the establishment utilizing this law to go after their political rivals. Then we saw the increase in prosecutions under this law. It started with the Trump, the Russiagate hoax investigation alleging that Trump had colluded with Russia to win the elections in 2016. They started going after Trump's allies. Then with Biden coming in, we saw this law then utilized against the Uhuru 3. And this law is a particular, fancy of the liberal wing of the establishment, that old Eastern establishment that is more oriented toward the NATO alliance, toward opposing Russia. This seems to be a legal strategy that they've been developing for years to utilize the Foreign Agents Registration Act. However, that opens the door to many alliances, and there are many figures we saw within the Trump administration and within the right side of the political spectrum, such as Tucker Carlson and others, who spoke up about the Uhuru case because they saw this law as a threat. We were really honored to honor the Uhuru movement at our convention this summer, but we also had a guest speaker. We honored Angela McCurdle of the Libertarian Party, and she spoke about how, in particular, the Libertarian Party was concerned about this law and how she had directly spoken with Pam Bondi and other administration officials about the weaponization of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. So we live in a time that is very confusing. It's not clear what is left and what is right. And I look with admiration to Chairman O'Malley and to the Uhuru movement, because you guys are not concerned about being left or being right. You're concerned about opposing this colonial system. You're concerned about empowering the Black community. You've got your Black Power blueprint. You've got the important work that you're doing, and you're focused on building up community power and empowering people. You're an optimistic movement. The Center for Political Innovation looks to the Uhuru movement as just a model of a successful anti-colonial organization that has not only been able to build and construct in the Black community, but has also been able to withstand a huge onslaught from the federal government and from the Atlanticist Eastern establishment that is determined to crush Russia, to crush China, to crush Zimbabwe, to crush the emerging union of Sahel states and Ibrahim Traore and every force around the world that struggles against colonialism, and we will continue to do everything we can to support this call. The Foreign Agents Registration Act is a threat against anyone in the United States who advocates peace. And I must say that unfortunately there are many voices on the right now, on what they call the dissident MAGA, who are saying that they want Israel to be prosecuted under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. And that's a very mistaken conception, right? The Foreign Agents Registration Act is a weapon in the hands of the forces that support Israel. And we can't expect them to just turn around and start using the law to do good. We need to get rid of this law, right? Just like, we don't support the American government taking away the right to free speech, even if they might promise to use it against people we don't like. We wouldn't support the American government having this, on the books, because we know they will use it against the forces struggling against colonialism. So, we look forward to anything we can do to support this campaign. I agree with what Brother Jesse said. This does absolutely need to be a mass campaign. People need to raise awareness. We need to build pressure in the streets to overturn this law, to raise awareness about what this law really is, and to penetrate different spaces where the awareness is not there. And I'm very excitedly looking forward to hearing what the other panelists have to say, in particular Chairman O'Malley, who's led a life of struggle, someone I deeply look up to, and we really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this important coalition. Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb Uhuru. That was magnificent as always. Yeah. Thank you so much for that great history and summation, and as always, very moving statement of solidarity with the Uhuru movement. Thank you, Caleb.
Yes,
thank
you so much. Yes, and a reminder of just the great work that the Center for Political Innovation continues to do in terms of taking a stance, right, on all the questions that we understand can be fought if we, build and, fight back. So I really want to salute and appreciate that presentation, Caleb, and, hope that you will stay on with us for a little longer. And I also, great, wonderful. And I have the great pleasure of introducing our next speaker, a longtime supporter, of the Uhuru movement as well, member of the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Committee, John McCarthy, who is a longtime peace activist from Chicago and an associate of Caleb Maupin and a member of the Center for Political Innovation. Anywhere you turn around, you'll see John. So so you're lucky to, catch the comrade here as well. And I want to turn it over to you, John. John's going to talk to us about how the Uhuru 3 fight back and the campaign to repeal FARA defends, freedom of speech for everyone. So I'll turn it to you, comrade Uhuru. And thanks for joining us, Uhuru.
On behalf of myself and the Center for Political Innovation, I would like to express our extreme gratitude to you, to Chairman Yeshitela, to Uhuru 3, and to the party for standing up, for fighting back, for winning, and now for continuing to fight. Because the state planned to use this case, the case against Uhuru 3, as a precedent. They expected you to cut some kind of deal or to just quietly fight it out legally in court. But Chairman Yeshitela had the wisdom to understand that this was a political fight, not a legal fight. And instead of just fighting in the courts, he took it to the streets. He took it to the airwaves, and he won the people over to support. So as a result, we won the battle in Tampa. Basically, the United States government surrendered, but the sneaky bastards tried to surrender on their own terms. They said, okay, this law, we're going to, basically they sentenced you to community service, to doing what you're already doing. Said, keep doing what you're doing. And then they said, we're going to agree that this law doesn't really apply to you, but we would like to keep the laws on the books so that we can use them when we want to, against who we want to. And Chairman Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party said, hell no. because you're not just worried about yourself. Your goal is to make sure that humanity survives this current crisis and transitions to the next level of social development. And that's what free speech is really all about. Free speech is not supposed to be about just, airing your opinions or discussing your grievances. Free speech is about the ability to deliver to the people those essential truths that they need to survive and to advance. And right now, those truths that the government is trying to prevent the people from hearing through these kinds of laws are, number one, that this current system we're living under is dying. That's not really a secret. Anybody living here can see that. Two, that a better, more human system is being created in the global south and in the east. And three, that the imperialists and the colonialists are willing to risk a nuclear war, a world-ending nuclear war, in order to stop that new world from emerging and prospering. So CPI is very grateful to the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru 3, because delivering that truth to the people is our purpose and our mission. But not just us, the whole world needs to be grateful, because the whole world is at risk. And Chairman Yeshitela and the Uhuru 3 and the African People's Socialist Party have shown that you are in this fight for real. And CPI is with you until the end, until victory, until Uhuru.
Oh,
Uhuru.
Uhuru. Right on. Thank you so much, Comrade John, for that powerful statement. Very moving, statement in regards to how this, is a case that we all must adopt, that we all must see it, as one of our own. And so I just really want to appreciate your, helping us to, link that back together and, using the Uhuru 3 case as a perfect example. It wasn't just about freeing 3, it was about freeing the whole people. So thank you so much, Comrade. Uhuru Chair Jesse, how are we doing on, Uhuru.
That was very powerful, as always. I'm always so appreciative to hear Comrade John McCarthy. Thank you so much, John. And we want to remind people to continue donating. We've got $625 left to go to fund the fight back, fund the ongoing counteroffensive. You can go to handsoffahuru.org/donate. And now I'm very honored, Chair Mwezi, to introduce our third panelist. Joining us from New Zealand, this is Reginald Calloway. He is a longtime member of the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee, working on this committee when it was led originally by Director Chimaranga Selembao, who I would be remiss not to give a shout out to Director Chimaranga for his amazing work on the legal front. And Comrade Reginald is a legal worker. He's a researcher, an excellent researcher who works alongside lawyers in the administrative law space, advocating in regulatory proceedings and helping their clients respond to government action. And Reginald is going to be talking to us about recent updates on the Foreign Agent Registration Act law, including the way that states throughout the United States are working to implement their own state-level FARA laws. So let's bring on Reginald Calloway.
Uhuru, Reginald. I think something is up with the video. I couldn't prompt you to come on camera, but you're unmuted now.
Okay. Let's see if I can do it here.
Okay.
Nope. I guess it's not working here.
There. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay.
Let's try to resolve that while you go on. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Can we bring up my slides?
There we go.
All right. Yes. Thanks for inviting me for this very important briefing. Yes, I'm gonna kind of rehash what Jesse and McCarthy and Caleb had brought up earlier here, but more on towards the landscape of the FARA law and the USC 951. I'm taking a high-level review of the evolution of the foreign agent laws, specifically focusing on the intersection of 18 USC 951 and the Foreign Agents Registration Act. While these statutes date back to 1917 and 1938 respectively, 2025 marked a distinct pivot in enforcement strategy. It has moved from a period of aggressive, broad criminalization to a more nuanced landscape involving criminalizing many more types of free speech actions and state-level regulations, what are called baby FARA laws, and refined federal guidelines. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is the most critical slide for understanding one's legal exposure. Spies is often conflated with lobbyists, but the law distinguishes them sharply. On the right, there is the Section 951, and this is the spy statute, the espionage, what Jesse had kind of hinted to earlier, is very narrow, targeting agents acting under the control of foreign governments for non-political, often covert activities. The penalty is severe, up to 10 years in prison, because it implies espionage adjacent conduct. On the left side of the column there is the FARA column, 18 USC 611. This is a transparency statute, not a criminal prohibition on the activity itself. It covers a much more broader range of principles, including foreign political parties and corporations. The goal here is disclosure. FARA captures political influence and lobbying, whereas 951 captures covert action. If anyone is lobbying for a foreign company, they are likely in FARA territory. If they're fulfilling intelligence tasks for a foreign ministry, they're in 951 territory. Next slide. Okay, here's the timeline for the key milestones for how it moved from the Espionage Act to FARA and onward here. To understand the current climate, look at the enforcement arc. Section 951 was born from World War I espionage concerns. FARA followed in 1938 to so-called counter-Nazi propaganda. For decades, these laws were relatively dormant. However, note the surge between 2017 and 2024, a period of hyper-enforcement where the Department of Justice applied these laws broadly against political consultants and lobbyists and anybody else they determined that were enemies of the state. This brings us up to 2025 and the Pine-Bondi memo. This is what Jesse had spoken about earlier. This document signals a retreat from using Section 951 as a catch-all for unregistered lobbying, returning to a national security roots, while we're focusing FARA on civil compliance. We are currently navigating this recalibration. Next slide. Okay, let's briefly touch on 951. While often called espionage light, it is supposed to be the primary tool for prosecuting the non-traditional intelligence actors. These are not necessarily case officers working out of an embassy. They can be private citizens directed by a foreign official to carry out specific tasks. The 2025 Bondi memo enforcement shift suggests the DOJ is reserving this status for genuine national security threats rather than administrative failures to register. but the capability to prosecute remains robust for those acting at the behest of foreign intelligence services, which, that's out there. Next slide. Yes. Moving to FARA, which is more relevant to corporate and political consultants. This statute has evolved significantly from its anti-propaganda origins. Today, FARA is used against foreign malign influence. The government's objective is not to stop anyone from advocating for foreign interests, but to ensure the source of the messaging is public. Okay, next slide. Okay. But practically, what does FARA registration entail? My personal belief, it is a stigmatizing label. Registration is triggered within 10 days of agreeing to an act. It requires filling the contract, compensation and details, and plan activities. The key takeaway here is that registration does not prohibit the activity. Anyone can lobby for a foreign entity, provided they label the materials and disclose the relationship. The crime is in the secrecy, not the advocacy. Okay, and on the right, there's a flow chart there. And it's just kind of signifying the liability analysis there. Okay, let me just look through the rest of this here. Okay, just next slide there. Okay, okay, do not assume a foreign principal is only a government. Under FARA, this definition is incredibly broad. It includes foreign political parties, foreign corporations, NGOs, and even individuals outside the United States. If anyone is representing a foreign oligarch or a generic business association based in Europe, for example, they have a foreign principal. The nature of the entity changes, which exemptions might apply, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it does not remove the initial flag. Next slide. Okay, the scope of agency. The agency test, this is a test kind of like in a legal perspective. The test is where more legal battles are fought. The statute uses expansive language, direction, or control. However, the Department of Justice supposedly looks for whether it is fair to conclude if they are acting on an alter ego of the foreigner. Note the funding is a factor, but is not a dispositive. One can be an agent without being paid and can receive funds without being an agent. The core question is, whose interests are they ultimately serving, and do they hold the power to request or direct one's actions? Next slide. Okay, yeah, the nonprofits are probably, they're going to be the most visible in all this because a lot of them are going overseas for their associations. So yeah, I've run into a couple of them online previously on this, and yeah, they're keenly aware that FARA is a problem for them. But accepting a grant from a foreign government, partnering with an international organization, or acting as a U.S. chapter of a global trade organization can create agency relationships. If a U.S. nonprofit takes foreign money and then lobbies Congress on issues aligning with that donor's interest, the DOJ may view the nonprofit as a conduit for foreign influence. Next slide. Okay, covered activities. The activities that trigger FARA can go beyond traditional lobbying. They can be categorized into 4 brackets: political activities, public relations, fundraising, and representation before the government. Political activity is the widest net. It covers any attempt to influence the US public or officials regarding policy. If someone is advising a foreign agent on a PR strategy to improve their reputation in the US, that is registrable activity. So you got to go to the website, on the FARA website, and log yourself in. Next slide. Okay, the covered activities. Drilling down further, notice the inclusion of tourism and informational materials under public relations. Even promoting a country as a travel destination can be registrable if directed by the foreign government. Furthermore, representation includes informal meetings. One does not need to be testifying in a committee hearing. A coffee with a regulator to discuss foreign clients' permit issues is sufficient to trigger the statute. Next slide. Okay, there are some exemptions. Not everything that you deal with overseas is considered fair territory. The main exceptions are commercial exceptions and LDA exemptions. LDA are the Lobbying Disclosure Act exemptions. The LDA exemption allows anyone to register under the Domestic Lobbying Disclosure Act, which is far less burdensome, provided the principal is not a foreign government or political party. This is why distinguishing between a state-owned enterprise and a private foreign corporation is vital. If someone works for the Ministry of Trade, such as New Zealand, the LDA exemption is off the table. They must file under FARA. Next slide. Okay, yes, once Trump had came into office, things changed there a bit. 2025 landscape is defined by the Bondi memo and the pending DOJ rulemaking. The Bondi memo formalized a retreat from the aggressive criminal theories of the past few years. The DOJ is signaling that they will prioritize civil injunctions for FARA and reserve criminal charges for the clear willful espionage-like conduct. However, they are simultaneously using joint terrorism task forces to investigate networks tied to domestic unrest, adding a national security layer to be purely political investigations. And this is what Jesse was talking about earlier there. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is not meant to be funny, but it's actually pretty serious. These are the state laws that states are also in the act engaged in creating their own FARA laws, but mostly targeting, the supposedly the adversaries out there. As the federal government narrows its criminal focus, the states are filling the void. In 2025, we saw a proliferation of FARA laws in states like Florida, Arkansas, and Texas. These laws often target specific countries of concern: China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. They create state-level disclosure requirements that are sometimes stricter than federal law. Even if someone qualifies for the federal FARA commercial exception, they might still have to register with the state attorney general for one's activity involves a designated hostile foreign principal. This one here, there's a lot that's not challenged in courts on these here. Florida had one in place and it was challenged and it was kicked out because normally states are not supposed to coincide with overseas foreign operations. So these laws are very shaky and can be challenged, and they should be challenged at the state level, wherever they crop up. Okay, and then my last slide here is the next one. Yes. Okay, this is a high-profile case here that's been going on in New York. To illustrate the current enforcement reality, consider the recent case of Linda Sun, a former aide to New York governor. She was charged with acting as an agent of the Chinese government. Significantly, she was charged under FARA, not Section 951, which is the espionage statute. Prosecutors accused her of receiving proceeds from her Chinese contacts, which she allegedly used to purchase high-value luxury items. As of the time of this briefing, the defense and prosecution have rested their cases, and the trial is awaiting jury verdict. And that's my slides there.
Uhuru. Thank you, Reginald.
Yes, thank you.
I really appreciate your presentation and all of the updates. And, we'll definitely keep an eye on that case. And I hope she gets an acquittal, as I do for anybody who was charged under this completely illegitimate law. I hope the government loses every case they bring against anyone until we are victorious in getting these laws eliminated altogether. But thank you for that presentation and for all of that information. And before we bring on our keynote speaker, just want to appreciate everybody who's been donating at handsoffahuru.org/donate. Continue to go there and donate to get us towards our goal of $1,000. And, just reiterate that we are taking on this campaign for the repeal of the Foreign Agent Registration Act 951 and conspiracy laws as colonial, illegitimate, anti-democratic, repressive laws. I think it's important to remember that when we look at the whole context of how these laws have been used historically, it's one thing to see what the law says, which, in my view, even just based on what the law says, it poses, a serious threat to the First Amendment. But the substance of the law is revealed in how it has been used over the years of its history. And it is clear that, when they talk about working on behalf of a foreign principal, even in terms of communication and things like that, in the case of the Uhuru 3, you saw a perfect example that merely by alleging some similarity between the opinions of the Uhuru movement and the opinions of the government of Russia on something like the Ukraine war, or the ability of athletes from Russia to participate in the Olympics, merely by alleging some apparent or supposed similarity in views, they brought this absurd charge that there was somehow direction and control, and that African people do not have their own agency and their own voice. So thank you for that, Reginald, and to Caleb and John as well. And SGM Wazy, I'll turn it over to you to on our keynote speaker.
Wow, great. Wonderful. And I just want to join you, Chair Jesse, in thanking our speakers and just all the great presentations. I really do want to also join in appreciating Reginald for that presentation and the work that you do. This comrade is just really profound work in the area of research. We want to join, and call on others who also want to be a part of this. I want to salute the Legal Defense Support Committee for your, for your work. And thank you for that summation, Chair Jesse, as well. So I'm really excited to bring up our next speaker. I'll be introducing Chairman Amalia Shatella. Chairman is a leading force organizing the struggle to unify Africa and African people everywhere. I know for me, and I say this often, that I would not be here in this moment talking to you with these ideas, with this understanding, if it was not for the chairman, who has spent his life in the trenches building the African Revolution as the only solution to the poverty, oppression, and colonial violence faced by Black people on the continent of Africa, inside the US and around the world. The chairman has developed the anti-imperialist political theory of African internationalism, which explains the world through the eyes of the African working class and in solidarity with oppressed and colonized peoples around the world. The chairman is also the founder of the Burning Spear newspaper, and you can learn more about that at burningspear.com. He built the International Tribunal on Reparations for African People and popularized the concept of reparations throughout the U.S. So it's a great honor to welcome you, Chairman, onto the stage to give us a political overview and a political summation of the significance of this struggle in the context of the political period of crisis of colonialism, colonial law, and the struggle for anti-colonial democracy. So, Uhuru, Chairman. Oh, let me prompt. Uhuru.
First of all, I'd like to express my appreciation to you, Comrade Chairwoman Mwezi, and to Comrade Jesse, and these extraordinary presenters who preceded me. There's so much really critical, important information that's been provided by everyone. So I want to express appreciation for that. Also, I want to join you in recognizing the passing of H. Rap Brown, who was my chairman some years ago, and an extraordinary force from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, who was pursued by this government, arrested, shot. I think it's important to say that H. Rob Brown was not just some individual who was arrested, even though that's enough to be falsely arrested. You don't have to be significant, but Rob Brown was somebody who was struggling for the happiness of African people, for return of our resources. Rob Brown was somebody who had a profound impact on the consciousness of people recognizing that African people were oppressed. And once that recognition has been achieved, then one has to acknowledge that if there are oppressed people, there must be an oppressor. And Rap fought against that oppressor in every instance, every opportunity he had to do that. He did it, and he did it brilliantly. I want to also say that, so Rap can't be with us. Mumia can't be here in person with us, and we know why, because he's imprisoned also. He was accused of shooting a cop and a policeman, a military force, and a domestic military force in Philadelphia. And the struggle has been made to show, and I think convincingly, that Mumia did not shoot a cop, that he is not guilty of what he has been charged with. But I think that's part of the dilemma that we're confronted with when we're dealing with these issues of law, and why the struggle to deal with FARA is also important. Because the fact is that in Philadelphia, the murder by police, and there's one guy who was the chief of police, his name was Rizzo, who used to brag that his military force, the police of Philadelphia, could successfully invade and conquer Cuba, who was a horrible oppressor of African people there in Philadelphia, first as a chief of police and then as mayor, just committed all kinds of horrible offenses against the people, was that on one occasion prior to the bombing that happened later of the MOVE organization, Rizzo was the one who initiated that war against the MOVE organization. Again, a group of African people who simply were fighting for happiness and for the return of resources for African people. And we have to also acknowledge the fact that Comrade Kitty Riley, Comrade Penny is not here personally. I mean, I think she's online with the meeting, but she would be here as the vice chair of this committee, were it not for the fact that Comrade Kitty Riley, that Penny has such a really important role to play with taking care of Comrade Kitty Riley, who is a long time member of the Uhuru movement, and who has recently experienced serious attacks on her health, and who has to be acknowledged as well. So I just wanted to say those things. And then I want to say that one of the people not here, but who has been a target and a principal in this struggle also is Comrade Deputy Chair Onazane Ishatella, who was with me in my house, our house, when the government attacked us with armored vehicles and a real military assault that terrorized an entire community, cordoned off an entire African community, and used flashbang grenades and other instruments of terror, and threatened to kill me with this in pre-dawn raid with laser targeting devices, striking me in the chest when I, following their command, came downstairs out of my house. And of course, I'm recognizing what they did to Fred Hampton in 1969. So I just want to say that the Comrade Deputy Chair, Onazane Ishatella, has played an incredible role, and in many ways is responsible for some things that Comrade Caleb talked about in terms of economic development programs that we've initiated here in the city of St. Louis, and also the basis and part of the attack that was made against our movement, because we recognize that we are fighting against colonialism. And colonialism is foreign and alien power that has taken over the lives and resources of a people, and that we negate the colonial power by ourselves creating what we've characterized strategically as a dual and contending power as a part of the process of taking back our power. It is not something that expects to coexist with the colonial power. It coexists to the point that we can take our power over our own lives, and that's what it's been about. And Comrade Onezene Shatella has played a profound role in this. Uhuru, Comrade Natsu, and Comrade Ward, and all of the others who've been, Paulo, and others who've been with us in fighting this struggle. Now, I think it's important that we talk about this FARA and taking on the FAR Act and taking on all of those other conspiracy laws that they use to oppress us and oppress the peoples. I think it's important that we have this committee that we've established of various people from various parts of the United States that will extend even beyond the borders, the current borders of the United States, because nobody needs to be standing alone in these struggles. Because the fact is that we recognize that since for a while now, we've been existing within a colonial mode of production, that colonialism is the actual foundation of the system of capitalism that so many of our friends say that they are opposed to. But Karl Marx himself has said that the system of capitalism had as a precursor, had as an origin, the turning Africa into a war for the commercial hunting of black skins. He talked about the war that was made against the East Indies and the war made against what he characterized as the Aboriginal people right here in this country. This is what we characterize as the thing that's actually established not a capitalist mode of production, but a colonial mode of production upon which the capitalist system rests. And we also recognize that we're looking at a class system, that you're talking about law. Law is significant because of the capacity of a state, the existing state power, to exercise its will, and it exercises will through force of arms effectively. And in many instances, what we find is that after the colonial state takes power, it wins masses of colonizers, that is to say, ordinary white people, who should be on the side of the colonized, who should be on the side of those of us being exploited, except colonialism helps to obscure their own oppression, because it gives this false identity to the colonizer that presumes that the colonizers are special and that those who are oppressed are special, especially negative, especially insignificant, especially problematic, especially criminal, especially anything that justifies oppression, exploitation, and the collective theft of resources. So we have a situation that many people refer to, or some people refer to as the United States in terms of as some kind of democracy. But the fact is that what we have is a democracy that came into existence on the stolen land of indigenous peoples, on the stolen labor of African people that function as the twin pillars of the foundation of the system that we're looking at. So as we've said before, that the colonizers, we've just seen recently this whole movement, this whole campaign against kings and what have you. And there's some legitimacy to this concept of fighting against kings, because the laws that were established, the constitutional rights and assumptions, presumptions within the United States, is a fight that was made against the nobility of Europe, against feudal Europe, European powers that actually rescued masses of people, rescued themselves from feudal domination of their own oppressors, their own lords and what have you, but on the land of the indigenous people with the labor of African people. So in fact, what we look at is a people where one, the actual freedom to oppress others, the freedom to oppress Africans, the freedom to oppress the indigenous people here whose land they stole, whose land they enjoy. Was no such thing as property owners meaningfully in Europe prior to the attack on this land. This land that I'm talking about now, of course, is the United States. It's an extraordinary settler colony, just as where Comrade was talking a moment ago, from New Zealand, settler colony, Australia, settler colony, Canada, settler colony. And in every instance, the colonizers made the rules and defined what the laws are. And in every instance where you find settler colonialism, the success of those who are colonizing these circumstances represent a dire, critical threat to the colonial project itself. So I'm looking just in January, the Foreign Affairs. Foreign Affairs is an instrument of the Rockefellers who Comrade Caleb mentioned earlier, who part of the Trilateral Commission. And they created this Foreign Affairs, the Atlanticist bloc did. And Foreign Affairs represents the thinking representatives of that sector of the rulers in this country. And it was talking in January of 2024. It was speaking to the crisis inside the United States. And it was talking about how there was a growing element of lawlessness and violence, and how this lawlessness and violence stemmed in part from the inability of the system itself, or the apparent inability of the system itself to deliver for the people what it is that they needed. They couldn't find it in the system, so they stepped outside the system. You want to understand why this killing happened in Utah? It's because the system proved unable to solve the problems of people. So people settle their arguments, their political struggles with guns and things like that inside this country. But another thing that he talked about is in terms of the crisis that I think we have to pay attention to, and certainly Africans do, is the demographic change happening inside this country, where this same Foreign Affairs article that I'm talking about predicted, it quotes figures that predicts, and we've seen this before, people in this meeting, that by 2045, white people will be a minority in this country. And for settlers, that's an incredible dilemma to be faced in, for the settlers to become a minority in the country they occupy. And that's why they will not allow in Palestine the Palestinians to return, because the return of the Palestinians makes clear that the settlers who have stolen their land represent a minority. And in this instance, that's why you have to understand why there are troops at the border, southern border, to keep the Mexicans and other people from coming into the country from the south. Why there are military forces in the African communities, the National Guards, and a threat to have National Guards have federal troops using our communities as training grounds. That was called for by the Department of War. Just recently, along with the President of the United States, talking about bringing the war home to fight crime. That's why, and this is really concerning. It's concerning to me, it's concerning to us as African people, because some of you realize that even after the so-called Emancipation Proclamation of 1865, the murder and war, mass murder of African people in this country was incredible, tremendous. And some of you recognize that up until when the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights were created in I think 1797 inside the United States, African people were enslaved. That those rights never were intended for us as a people. And so we've had to fight every inch of the way for everything. And because the settlers are aliens to this land, they have no connection to the land beyond what they've stolen. And they have no connection to nature here. They won't protect the buffalo, they kill the buffalo, they kill everything, and everything that reminds them of the success of the society or the country or the world prior to their existence. So I'm concerned with all of this. I'm concerned because this regime here that's in power now is a popular regime. It is one that has a tremendous amount of support from the settler population. And the fact is that even in the first and second elections that this president participated in, he won 57% of the vote of the settler white population. And it's a statement of the popularity of what he's doing. And so what he's doing and stating is obscene. Should be obscene to anybody with any sense of morality or humanity. Even bourgeois morality would find what he's talking about and what this government is doing to be prohibitive, but it's not. Because this is something that has been won to the consciousness of a tremendous amount of settlers in this country, just as in New Zealand, just as in Australia, where hunting and killing the indigenous people became a practice, where in this country, in the United States, killing the indigenous population became a national pastime, where lynching was extraordinarily real. And it was not some lone thing that happened by individuals in the middle of the night, but masses of white people, sometimes thousands, participated in a very celebratory process of and competing with each other to get what body parts they could get from Africans they've murdered. We've got something in this country right now. The largest prison population in the world. And I've read that if you would remove the indigenous people, Africans, the colonized people, they would reduce the prison population something about 2/3. And this is something that is known. Africans are the criminals. Africans are characterized in that way. So when it is talked about using federal troops in our communities to bring the war home, to fight against crime, it is something that too many people find acceptable. So this is really important to us. And it's important that we build a movement. We build a thing that would take on this question of FARA, because the question of the law it's a law that's a colonial law, and it permeates everything. Slavery was legal, and they would come up with various means and basis for being able to justify slavery. It happened all along, all the time. Even the League of Nations, when it was created based on self-determination, in part, they said, how does one become self-determined? How do we win support from the international community legal system, which consisted primarily of colonizers at the time? How does that happen? You can only have self-determination if one is civilized. Who determines who is civilized? The colonizer says who is civilized. And that's how law begins to be something that should apply to us in terms of self-determination. So this is what we're looking at. This is a critical question for us, because the kind of lynching that's been done in the past is a real possibility right now as we have in this discussion. My comrade, friend, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, used to say something like, Africans won't be like the Jews and walk into the gas chambers. I'm saying we're already in the gas chambers. When you have the number of people in prison, like Africans do, when they say 1 out of every 3 African men will go to prison within between the ages of 18 and 35, something to that effect, that is the gas chamber. And there's more. There's no complaint. There's no uprising by people when they see and they learn of a pre-dawn raid that's been made on us in 1996, when they came 300 strong to attack our building in St. Petersburg, Florida, using all kinds of military forces and the National Guard on standby for what? For talking, for opposing what this government was doing in terms of having murdered a young man in St. Petersburg, Florida. So this is what we're confronted with. And this thing that's different now. And I want to say that there are some similarities. We've seen something like this before during the Reagan administration in the 1980s, where the first iteration in modern iteration of Make America White Again with Ronald Wilson Reagan. And under the same kind of circumstances, he came to power, that Biden just lost this election. Well, Reagan was going to rescue America from the losses of the Carter administration, that lost from their perspective, Iran, that lost what they call Panama, that saw the success of the Nicaraguan revolution and the possibility of a Salvadoran revolution becoming happening. Then this president is defending America too. Now you have the Gulf of America, not the Gulf of Mexico, talking about taking all kinds of lands and resources, talking about a public characterization of Africans in places like Minneapolis as in the most grotesque ways, and apparently and not running into any meaningful repercussions. I just want to say that I think it's meaningful that we don't see coming from the so-called left, from the so-called liberals, any comments. They talk about Trump, they talk about authoritarianism represented there. But this country has a history of murdering Black people. This country has a history of murdering indigenous people who are locked in concentration camps right now. This country has a history of having stolen part of Mexico and then creating a certain characterization of Mexicans that makes it easy to accept a murder of all the people I'm talking about. This is the history that we are facing as African people. And yet, with all of that, with troops in Washington, D.C., with threat of troops in other places, in Chicago and other places with large African population, National Guards, with threats of talking about threats of sending the federal troops to fight against crime and using our communities as training grounds. Nobody is talking about what's happening to Black people. They speak in these terms about how it's some kind of authoritarianism. It's a potential lynch mob, and I want to see liberals and leftists have to address that. And that's one of the things that FARA is so important to us, because it brings all of us into this common network to fight against laws like that, and even against the presumption of the ability to murder people because you don't like what they're saying and how they look. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru, Chairman.
Uhuru, Chairman. Wow. Yeah, I'm always, kind of speechless after. I can't add to that, but I just want to say, Chairman, I just really want to salute your leadership, and just on your last point, calling out those who, have retreated, and not to say that they were even, on the forefront of any of this type of push and discussion, but, are clearly cowering, behind, whatever they stand on at, on any given day on this question. And I just think it's really important that we do, put that out, and that we do call on, liberals and, everybody, who is a so-called defender of, freedom of speech to, really show that, and to, get behind this struggle. And it's a call to join the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition, who is, boldly, unapologetically, and will win this, struggle. So we call on you to get on the right side as well. And so I just want to salute that presentation, Chairman. I'll turn it to you, Chair Jesse Uhuru.
Chair Jesse, before you come on, I want to say people should make the contributions. Make
Yes.
the donations. Let's get this $1,000. One. Two,
Yes.
I think it's extremely important for us to say that the vanguard of the settler population is in this meeting. Then we look at, CALEP and CPI, and we look at the African People's Solidarity Committee, and we look at other comrades, from the settler population. We are looking at the vanguard. The liberals are not just afraid, and some timidity, of course, that's what liberalism is. It cannot tolerate abrupt transformation, abrupt changes, and things like that. But also because they unite. The liberals are more afraid of Black people and what we might do than the government. And that's one of the problems that we have. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you so much, Uhuru.
Yeah.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chairman. That was brilliant presentation, as always. So important to have in the context of this discussion about this campaign. And I just want to express my profound unity with everything that you laid out, and with your leadership, and also with your salute of Comrade Kitty Riley. I want to join you in that salute, and just say that, Kitty Riley is a comrade, a cadre of the African People's Solidarity Committee. I've always deeply admired and do to this day. And she's always been a fighter, and she is a fighter right now. She is fighting to be back out on the front lines. And we were with her yesterday. She had the Burning Spear newspaper in her hands, the latest issue. So she's truly an amazing comrade, and just want to express revolutionary love to Kitty as well. And again, thank you, Chairman, for those very powerful words, and for putting all of this into context as part of the struggle against the colonial mode of production, against the colonial state. I think that was such an important analysis, and people are continuing to donate. We have donations from $40 from Molly, 30 from Janine, 40 from Ruby, 50 from Maureen, and that brings us to only $415 left to go. So we're almost there, Chair Moisey. We're almost there. So people just need to go to handsoffahuru.org/donate. Let's get that to 1,000. And I'm just going to we're going to open it up for, I know, some discussion on these amazing presentations. But first, I will close this out by talking about what you can do. Every single one of you that's tuned in today, no matter where you're located, can start taking action today. Today, you can start taking action. And we're going to talk about what that looks like with the Hands Off Uhuru Repeal FARA campaign. So if we can pull up those slides, thank you again to our amazing AV team. So here's some quick action items for everybody in this meeting today. First of all, go to handsoffahuru.org/outreach, and there is a new flyer, double-sided flyer, black and white. You can get it easily printed. I recommend checking out your local library. A lot of libraries have free printing. Get that flyer printed out. It lays out the basic points and call to action of this campaign, and start distributing literature in your community. This is a people's movement. We need to build this from the ground up, and getting this literature out in the community is absolutely key. So go to handsoffahuru.org/outreach. The comrades are putting that in the chat as we speak, and start making plans to get your literature printed and start getting it out in the world. Go to college campuses, go to your local coffee shops or grocery stores, or any busy intersections with a lot of foot traffic, and start getting the word out. I want to appreciate John McCarthy. I feel like he's exemplary in this regard. Any opportunity John has to stand up with some flyers and make a statement at an event, whether it's with Julian Assange's father and brother who came to Chicago, or any other opportunity, Jimmy Dore, any opportunity that John has to get the word out, he takes it. So we want everybody to be like John, and all of us have a responsibility to be the foot soldiers for this campaign, and this is our ammunition right here. And we also have ammunition for distributing the word online. Also on handsoffahuru.org/outreach, you will find some new graphics that you can promote on social media. This is just the first slide. There's about 4 different graphics that lay out the political overview of the campaign and the specific calls to action that we're calling on people to take. And this will be going out on all the Hands Off Uhuru social media platforms as well. So you can share it from there, but also you can post it on your own. Post it around, post it to your organization, send it to your friends, and let's get the word out every way possible. Next slide. Hold a teach-in, forum, or rally in your community or on your campus. This kind of discussion that we're having today, let's bring this discussion down to the ground where you are. Let's say you're a part of an organization. Let's say you have access to a local campus, or even a church or a synagogue or a mosque. Let's bring the Repeal FARA campaign into your community. You can get in touch with us at info@handsoffahuru.org. That's going to be in the chat. And you can talk to us about working with you to actually plan a teach-in, a forum, or a rally to get this message out and to bring more people into this campaign. Next slide. Call or email your congressperson and tell them that you are calling on them to sponsor a resolution to repeal the Foreign Agent Registration Act. Everyone should start doing this right away. We'll be sending out more tips and guidelines on how to find your local congressperson if you don't know how to do that. But we want people to start looking into this right away. And we got to start making noise on the ground level in every possible way. And we want every local, we want every congressperson in the country to be hearing from their constituents, so-called, from the people who live in their districts, that this campaign has popular support and is backed by popular demand, and put them in the position of having to face the political conundrum of either doing something about it or not. So this is something we want people to start doing right away. Next slide. And, Reginald talked about these state level FARA laws. Everyone should look up. I mean, we saw some, and we'll send out those slides for people to have. But we want people to look into, is your state one of the ones that's passing a Foreign Agent Registration Act law? And if so, who's backing that law? Can we hold demonstrations outside of that person's office? Can we find out if there's any representatives who are opposing those laws and get in touch with them? This is the kind of stuff we need people everywhere to start doing right away, so that if these laws are in the process of being moved through the legislative process, we can stop them dead in their tracks through building a popular movement. And I just wanted to point out that those state level FARA laws, they are incredibly dangerous. And, as was pointed out by the previous presenter, the federal Foreign Agent Registration Act, it doesn't specify which countries the U.S. government is going to target people for some so-called relationship of, being a foreign agent. But, history shows that there are particular countries that the U.S. government is focused on, including China, Russia, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela. The state level FARA laws are more explicit. They actually say in the laws that relationships with those governments, governments that are involved in struggle against U.S. imperialism and the colonial mode of production, they don't say it like that, obviously, but they call them, quote, adversarial, that those are countries that any, expressions of support will be criminalized under these state level FARA laws. Next slide. And we will be building, we want to call on you to work with us to build for International Days of Action. So we are going to be meeting as the committee on a monthly basis, and we want everybody here to sign up to be a part of this committee so that you can be a part of planning and building for International Days of Action. There needs to be motion in the streets. We need to have massive demonstrations everywhere we can, demanding hands off Uhuru, demanding hands-off anti-colonial free speech, and demanding an end to these colonial repressive laws. Next slide. So join the committee. We meet once a month. We're going to be meeting on the third Tuesday of every month. And we want everybody here to jump on board, to be a part of this. Join comrades like John, Caleb, Reginald, Mia Perry, another great comrade that we have, and others who are involved in making this campaign happen, and bring your passion, bring your skills, bring your interests into this process. We need people to help plan events, to plan the teach-ins, to plan the forums, to plan days of action, to develop more and more literature and flyers and posters and social media and videos. We have a lot to do, and we need to make this campaign impossible to ignore. So please let us know either in the chat, no matter what platform you're tuning in from. We have chat moderators that are gathering that information. So you can let us know in the chat that you're ready to get on board and join this campaign. Or you can, once again, email us at info@handsoffuhuru.org. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru, comrade. Very exciting. We do hope everybody takes up that opportunity to, join the campaign. Let us know that you're interested. It would be really great to have, to really build this campaign out, with this understanding, with this perspective, that's not just trying to only just repeal a law, but, tying it to the greater vision, under the anti-colonial free speech, struggle. So really important. Thank you so much, Chair Jesse. I will be there on the third Tuesday of the month, and I look forward to seeing you and others there too. So Uhuru. We have another pledge that's come in. I'll just announce it. And I probably don't need to say the name because people may know what I'm going to say or who, but I want to salute Comrade MQ, who has pledged $40, Uhuru MQ, to the, okay, and a couple more. Also, Becky, $20 donation. Thank you, Comrade Becky, another, profound volunteer for the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back, as well as Comrade Diane Uhuru. Comrade Diane, thank you for your $10 donation. So we have 345 left to raise of our $1,000 goal. Great. I will throw out $25, and if anybody wants to match me, I'm going to pledge 25 right now. So I do want to also put that out, and our our calculator is working on giving us an update on that. So thank you for those donations, Uhuru. Go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate.
Uhuru.
All right, Uhuru. So, comrade, we are at the discussion. We have our panelists on too, so this is also an opportunity if there's anything else that wants to be, added or shared. But Chair Jesse, did you want to say anything before we move into the discussion?
No, this is really, really powerful. And yeah, we want to invite all of our speakers to come back on if there's anything that you would like to add for this discussion period. And people can, put any questions or comments in the chat, and our chat moderators will relay that to us so we can relay that to our presenters to address. And thank you to Angelica, who pledged $50. Uhuru,
Uhuru,
Angelica.
Uhuru. And someone is asking, well, I have one question in the chat, and I see some of our presenters have come back on. This is a question from Indigo. It says, is there an HOU Legal Defense Support Committee meeting this Tuesday, or is this starting in January?
So those will be getting back into effect in January coming year.
Uhuru. Great. Thank you for that question for clarification. So yes, January, we'll see you then on the third Tuesday. Uhuru, so I see the chairman, John and Caleb. Welcome, comrades. Chairman, did you want to add anything?
Well, I just wanted to say that part of what has been happening as it relates to the question of Black people, and I want to appreciate, I see Comrade Zakele from South Africa is watching this. And part of what has been happening is a certain designation of African countries and people as criminal. Like this government has created a whole new number of for refugees, the lowest in the history of the country, and some 7,000 plus. And majority of those are white people from South Africa. Not just any white people from South Africa, but the Boers in particular, the ones who were, in some instances, the primary administrators of the whole apartheid regime. And that with the declaration that they have to be, the white people have to be protected from genocide by Africans there in South Africa. One. Two, the discussion about a possible attack on Nigeria in order to protect Christians in Nigeria. Three, discussions also talking about the possible military attack in Mali, as we know, part of that Sahel resistance. So I just think it's really important for us, and this is played out for a colonial audience. This government has gone before the United Nations and claimed that the colonizers, that America and Europe have been played for chumps and things like that by the colonized, et cetera, and that the whole West has come out defending the so-called West from the rest of us. I think this is a very important era, and much of what we're looking at again is stuff that's been pumped out for the colonizer population, and to keep them and whip them and keep them in some kind of anti-African pro-white frenzy. Really requiring them to liquidate their relationship with the rest of humanity for this false identity of being white. So I just think it's because that doesn't say a damn thing. Well, it does say something about you, but I just think that it's a misconception and it's a political construct that confuses a lot of people, especially white people. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Anyway.
Uhuru, Chairman. Appreciate that, Chairman Shatella. And we're checking to see if we have any questions coming in.
And while you're doing that, Chair Jesse, we have an update. We have another donation coming in from the Deputy Chair of the African People's Socialist Party, Deputy Chair Onozune Yeshitela, who has pledged or who has donated 100. And
Uhuru.
also, did I get this? Did we already announce Angelica's $50?
Uhuru Angelica. That's
Uhuru
awesome.
Angelica, Uhuru. So that we have $170 left to raise, which
All
we
right,
can
we're getting
definitely
there.
do.
You may
Yes.
have already calculated Angelica. You may have.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
remember her name.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll
Thank
double
you,
check on
Chairman.
that. Thank you, Chairman. And yeah, I
Yeah.
just appreciate what the chairman was saying about, the question of the attacks on African people and the message that's being sent to the colonizers by the colonial state, and the role that we have, that the chairman has talked about as the solidarity movement, to take this out and win the deepest and broadest solidarity from the colonizer population with the anti-colonial struggle. And I want to recognize that there are people, the chairman mentioned Zakele, who's joining from occupied Azania.
Yes.
There's also comrades joining us from Louisville, Kentucky, from Ecuador, from Southern California, from St. Louis, from Gainesville, Florida, from St. Petersburg, Florida, from Oakland, California, from Columbus, Ohio, San Diego, California, Atlanta, Georgia, and many other places that, New Zealand, we have our comrades on from New Zealand, Chicago, Illinois, and many other places as well. So thank you to everybody who's on with us and who's a part of this discussion.
Yes.
And want to also open it up if any of our other panelists wanted to make any comments before we start to wind down towards the end.
Uhuru. And while we're doing that, another donation. I want to appreciate Robert for your $20 donation. So we have 150 left to raise for today. Uhuru. I don't know if this is a question, but I appreciated Comrade Caleb, you bringing up, because I do remember there was a great video that came out with CPI around just the work that CPI was doing and the, message to the people. And you mentioned, I think that was played at an event for CPI sometime earlier this year. And you mentioned Angela, is it how do you say, I wrote it down, but my handwriting is not helping me right now, of the Libertarian Party, who made that statement, with Pam Bondi. Did you are there updates? Or I was just curious, in what you said earlier, you were just reminding us of that, right? Of others. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I did reach out to her a couple weeks ago regarding the information that was published about the fact that that a new attorney has taken on the case, and she said she would be looking into that. And that was the extent of our communication. She has been heavily involved right now in arranging for the pardon of a number of the crypto prisoners. There's a number of people involved in the crypto, stuff who Trump has been pardoning one by one, and she's been heavily involved in those cases. And that was what she kind of has communicated in other presentations that she's made, is that I guess she said Trump really likes to free people, and she had one meeting with him at Mar-a-Lago, and that's what he said. Is he said, "I really like freeing people. I really like pardoning people." That was kind of her communication, and we hear from her every so often, kind of sporadically. But that was the statement that she made. We surprised us all that she made that at the CPI convention, and she announced, very publicly, I will raise this case with Pam Bondi and with my contacts at the Department of Justice, and then so we hope that she can follow through further on that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for that update and that clarification, Uhuru. All right.
We can elaborate on our,
yes, Chairman.
The comrades from CPI.
Yes.
I mean, we, they've said wonderful things here, but they do more than that.
Yeah.
I've seen them intervene, interrupt, major bourgeois events to raise up the question. I saw Caleb actually. I saw him in Russia actually. Talk to the president about our case, in a mass meeting and what have you. I mean, that's what I really appreciate these comrades. They're there, and there have been folk who at times have told us that we should not have a relationship with them, I'm sure there are people who told them they shouldn't have a relationship with us too. But I just think that some of the same people who make those statements were nowhere to be found, when the attacks have come. And so I just wanted to really, I just wanted to say that to elaborate on their presence and their participation in this movement. We really appreciate you, comrades, deeply.
Yeah.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman.
Yeah.
I unite with that. Go ahead.
It's an honor.
And John.
And this despite, we recognize there's some ideological and theoretical differences. But, these comrades have been there. Yeah. And those who love us, we can't find them anyway.
For real. Yeah. Chairman, as you pointed out, those same, forces that wanted to have issues with this relationship, what is the difference between them and the U.S. government trying to tell African people, the African working class,
who we can
relate with?
Yep. Exactly.
And Chair Mwezi, we got another pledge, $100 from Jerome.
Uhuru, Jerome.
Bring it on home. Bring it to Jerome.
Uhuru.
Yes. And $25 from Fofeet.
I see that.
I believe
we have reach our goal, or
I think we have $25 left.
Oh, okay. Well, we can do that.
We can do it. handsoffahuru.org/donate.
/donate. Before we wrap up for today, we'll be looking forward to announcing that goal. And yes, Uhuru, to just our chat moderators and our calculators behind the scene, this has been a really powerful, webinar and opportunity for us to, deepen our political understanding. I do want to salute also the Hands Off Uhuru Events Committee, who is responsible for putting these out, because these are not just talk fests. Right. This is really an opportunity for us to, as we say, through the lens of African internationalism, which is the theory of the African People's Socialist Party, but a theory that, speaks to all oppressed and colonized people. It's something that we can all adopt. And so, it's a theory for you, it's a theory for me, and this is a platform that we can use to help put that out in the world. So just want to also salute those who make these opportunities possible.
And Chair Mwezi, I'm excited to say,
yeah,
Paul Daniello pledged $10.
Hey,
and we just got a $25 donation from Bakari Olatunji.
Uhuru, Bakari.
That means we just surpassed our goal. And Bakari left a note with his donation. He said, "Victory is certain." Uhuru.
Yes. Uhuru, comrades. Wow. Well, we did it, comrades. Let's yes, right on. And we know, it's not easy to be able to give even at any time of the year, but colonialism will always find ways to pull us out of that process. And so it's really is a deep honor and much gratitude for everybody who has taken that step to donate and to pledge.
The struggle against the colonial mode of production is a struggle for the workers of the world, because from our perspective, the class question is concentrated in the colonial issue, the colonial question. So when they unite with this struggle, they're not just uniting with some Black nationalist movement. This is the revolutionary movement. This is the struggle for the emancipation of the workers of the world, the empowerment of the workers of the world. So I just wanted to say that. Uhuru.
Yeah, that's very clear, Chairman. Yeah. It is for all of us. So
yes.
Victory is certain. That is indeed. And we made another victory today just on this call. So Chair Jesse, up next was the appeal, but I don't, we don't even really go through that. So
we did it, Chair Mwezi. Thanks to all of the amazing people who are part of this coalition and this movement. We have raised, and also thanks to Wendy Snyder, who put in $25 as well. We are now at $1,035. So people can continue contributing. handsoffahuru.org/donate. This is a great victory. Thank you so much to everybody who took this stand for anti-colonial free speech. Uhuru.
You're the anti-FARA movement?
Yes.
Do it. Yes.
Let's do it. And Zai says with $25, yes, let's build the anti-FARA movement. So that's another $25 on today.
Zai?
Yes, Comrade Zai, Secretary for the Black is Back Coalition. Yes, Uhuru, comrade.
Uhuru.
All right.
Yes. FARA must go. Colonialism must go.
Yes, Uhuru. So I know our Zoom tech pulled up the appeal slideshow, but I think we can just, even the last slide says forward to the victory and thank you. So I would definitely want to say that. Thank you so much. So comrades, Chair Jesse, if there's anything else I'm missing, I think we can move towards announcements. And if there's any closing remarks, even from Comrade John, I know you unmuted earlier, but I just again want to acknowledge you and appreciate you. So, Uhuru.
Uhuru. I just want to thank our presenters, John, Caleb, Reginald, and Chairman Amalia Shatella, and you, Chair Mwezi. This was a really powerful event. Salute to Vice Chair Penny Hess, the chairwoman of APSC, to Deputy Chair Onazanea Shatella, to all of our comrades. And salute to MQ, who is one of our most incredible donors and a member of the Uhuru movement, who said, can we get a colonialism must go, FARA must go on a t-shirt? Yes.
Yes.
We must. That's an action item for us.
Right.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. All right, noted, MQ. All right, comrades. Well, as we take us out, we're going to take a look at some announcements, what's coming up. Just a reminder, you can always go to theburningspear.com/events to get updated on the events. And you too, if you have an event, that calendar is also for you. So we just want to make that clear as well. But on right now, as we move into our announcements, I want to remind us to join the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. You can find out more information, read our demands, our statement of unity, join this coalition, handsoffuhuru.org/coalition. You can join as an individual or as a member, and we would welcome you with open arms. Again, this was a coalition that was built under the principles of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign, formed in July 2023, and continuing to grow. As you saw, Chair Jesse, reminding us how we can take action, what you can do. Again, just a reminder, you can go to handsoffuhuru.org/outreach. This is where you can find banners, flyers. Right now, if you go there, you will see, and we want you to distribute this literature in your community. This is the Fight for Anti-Colonial Free Speech FARA campaign official flyer. I believe it is a two-sided flyer, which has more information on the backside. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chair Jesse. And we have a similar one here. Great. Yeah, so two-sided, and we have another graphic that's also on the website, handsoffuhuru.org/outreach, that you can put on your social media as well. So we want to see those up, and you can do that right now while you're in the meeting. Our chat moderators have dropped where you can find that link in the chat. So again, join the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee. And our monthly meetings, which will be on Tuesdays, every third Tuesday of the month, and you'll get more information about that as well. And you can check back on the website for more information. On behalf of the African People's Socialist Party, I want to call on everybody who is listening to register for the African People's Socialist Party National Planning Conference in 2026. This will be taking place April 17th through the 19th in St. Louis, a 3-day conference. These are the plenaries are the conferences that happen in between our Congress. As you know, much of this was disrupted following the attacks on the Uhuru movement, but we are getting back on track. We are putting revolution back on the agenda. And the theme of this year's plenary is "This time till it's won, power in our own hands." And the kicker, it's not just Trump, it's the whole damn system. So go to apspplenary.org/register. Register today. And those who do register will get a printed copy of the chairman's political report, which will be delivered at the plenary. So go to the plenary page today and register. And we want to continue to celebrate this great victory that Uhuru Bakery Cafe is open in St. Louis. Look at that beautiful mural. If you go inside, you'll just see an amazing, display of volunteer love, love and sweat and probably some tears, maybe, I don't know, but the bakery cafe is open. They are, delivering pies. The pie campaign is actually happening right now through December 31st. We want to encourage people to volunteer. So you can learn more about Uhuru Bakery and Cafe by going to apdf.org, the African People's Education and Defense Fund, which has all the information about other institutions. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on X, on Instagram, at handsoffuhuru.org. When you post anything about this campaign, hashtag handsoffuhuru. Some people have found this campaign just from a hashtag. So we have to use all these tools at our disposal. So follow us on social media. And we want to encourage you to subscribe to the Burning Spear newspaper. This is the longest economic institution of the African People's Socialist Party. The Burning Spear newspaper can be given as a gift. You can sponsor a prisoner. We have, people who have subscribed to the Burning Spear who are locked behind, enemy lines. And so we encourage you to think about gifting the Burning Spear newspaper to a, comrade who is locked down in these colonial prisons and, help them free themselves from the lies that, that are being told. Handsoffuhuru.org/events is where we encourage you to go for all of our further information. As we say, it's not over. We fight back till it's won. This is our comrades right there on the ground in occupied Azania, also known as South Africa. We salute those comrades and we salute the struggle. This is for them. This is for our comrades who are living in the belly of the other beast, which is, where the colonial assault happened. So we salute them and we say, fight for anti-colonial free speech. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on today for this powerful webinar. And go ahead, give me some more good news.
I had to interrupt, Chairman Waisey. I was very mobilizing, but I just want to let you know that thanks to Comrade Reginald, who put in $100, we have raised $1,160. So Uhuru,
Reginald, Uhuru, comrades.
And let's build the campaign to repeal the Foreign Agent Registration Act, the conspiracy laws, and put the colonial state on trial.
Uhuru. Hands off Uhuru.
Hands off
Africa.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.